Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye some 100% cotton yarn with some Tulip one-step tie-dye. Right here I have some of the color turquoise. It's about half, maybe a third full still, and I want to dye this yarn using only this color, but I want to end up getting something that looks like it has been dip dyed. And we're going to do that by dyeing some of the yarn, adding some more water, dyeing some more yarn, adding some more water, etc. And I think we'll end up with something really, really cool. This is tie-dye that I mixed up fresh today, so we are ready to go. And I pre-soaked the yarn for, I'd say, a good amount of time. Now, I want to make sure that I use a lot here at the beginning, but not too much, because I feel like the second section is one where I'll be able to add a lot more color because we're going to be starting off with more liquid in the bottle. But this is our sort of turquoisey color, and actually we got really, really good penetration right away. I'm sort of squeezing this onto the counter, but so we can like soak it up. And it does look like, even though I pre-soaked it for a while, there might be some whitish patches in there. I am sort of trying to do my best to get some color there. This cotton boucle is 2 strands. There's one thicker strand, one thinner strand. The nice thing is that I can always go over some of these sections that have white with one of the paler colors later on. So I'm trying not to worry about it too much, but I am just applying some small amounts of color to some places that seem to need it. But again, some white left behind is not like a horrible bad thing. Okay, now I've got the bottle, gosh, maybe like 20%, 10 to 20% full, and I'm gonna go fill it up all the way to the top. All right, now if I had started with a completely full bottle, then we could have done this a tiny bit differently. If I had started with a completely full bottle, I could have maybe done more gradual color changes, but we'll see how this goes. And this doesn't look that different, to be honest, even though it's definitely more dilute now. But we will see what we see when we go to rinse out the colors. And you know, of that new color, I've used definitely half of it so far. These bottles hold 4 ounces of liquid. Oh good, that actually is doing a really nice job. And you can see that the one tip is absolutely darker than this one. Again, there's a few spots that I sort of want to spot check, especially around like the tie region, some areas that just clearly were not super wet, but by applying some color directly there, we can help a little bit. But it is at least going through the whole thing rather nicely. I'm now going to go and fill it up again for the next segment. This time the color change might be a little less dramatic than the last one, and that is because we had like a third of the dye mixture left and maybe 2/3 of the water. But I'm adding a bunch of liquid. I'm hoping to do something that is fairly pale on the other end, but oh, you could totally see that that's lighter. It's nice that you can see it right away versus like wondering if you nailed it or not. I mean, this is very saturated. Man, those darn pockets. But that's okay. Again, like if there's some white left on here, it's not the end of the world. I think at the very end, I'll go through and be a little more careful and sort of check. But you can see if I squeeze it, it definitely holds a lot of liquid. Maybe, like, do I need to go back? Okay, so this is a paler color back here now. So I don't want to push out, but I can add liquid to some of those sections. But this is a pretty nice little gradient here. All right, we've got some color left, maybe about less than a third, maybe closer to 20%, but let's try this again. The water in the bottle is finally starting to look a bit paler. We'll see how it actually sort of reads here on this end. I wonder how like dilute you can have it and still get some color on yarn. I will be leaving this yarn for at least 24 hours for the colors to set, but you certainly, ooh, there's a big section of white. You can certainly instead steam set it actually, and I found that the colors end up being fairly equivalent. Ooh, there's some big sections of white over here. Let's kind of try to see if I can squeeze it in, squeeze and soak. It's funny, but we are looking rather dip dyed, which is the goal. The goal of this. I'm not sure what would happen if we tried to dip dye like this for real in the tie-dye. I don't think that that's something I've tried yet. I've definitely done low immersion and some other kinds of techniques with these Tulip one-step tie-dyes. I have a whole playlist that I will link in the video description. But if you want to dye cotton yarns, these are one of the most easy to find brands that you can locate. And it can be harder to find, say, fiber reactive dyes of some kind. All right. This is actually pretty good. I am now going to get ready to set this aside. Okay, I could wrap this up with some plastic wrap to sort of help, but instead I'm aiming to keep the lightest color at the top, darkest color towards the bottom. Oh dear, should put another glove on. Then get it into a Ziploc bag, and then we'll set this aside. But let's try to clean this up a little bit. Now we're getting a lot more color on our little rag. Okay, this amount of liquid coming out of the yarn is stressing me out a bit, so I am actually going to put this back down. I'm gonna go dump this. I know. I'm gonna dump it and then put the yarn in so it's not as drippy. I rinsed out the bag, and let's try this again. There's definitely some whitish patches. We're leaving color behind, but at least things are drier, and we will be back in about 24 hours. It's now been about 2 days later. Let's take a look at this quote dipped yarn. So on the lightest section already, I can see that there's some darker color there from just the way that it was added in the bag. I think I would have been able to preserve the whole gradient a bit better if I had wrapped it up in plastic wrap so the different areas wouldn't touch each other. But actually, we'll see how it looks as we start rinsing. I've definitely received questions in the past about rinsing this and using something else to soak up some of that extra dye. And that's something that definitely could work. Ooh, the pale is really pale. That's cool. I mean, there's no question from some of the areas where it was more dry, we do actually have sort of a kettle dyed look here. This isn't exactly what I was going for, but I think it is really, really beautiful. And I'm trying to squeeze out a lot of the yarn. Sorry, squeeze out a lot of the water. I think it is really, really beautiful. I'm now to take off the gloves. So that way I can reuse them. So I'm going to start adding some dish soap. I'm going to raise the temperature of the water. Dyeing with these tie-dye does involve a lot more rinsing. It's sort of the nature of the dye. The dye can react with water, which is why you never really get 100% of it down. You can get a lot of it down. But either way, we definitely, unquestionably here have some sort of gradient of saturation. Not the best execution, but it is looking great. And you can see that just after these couple minutes of rinsing, we're still seeing some bleeding, but it is significantly lighter than what we saw before. In addition to adding on some plastic wrap, so that way sort of the colors wouldn't bleed together from different regions of the yarn. One other thing I could have done is really make sure to have pre-soaked it a bit longer or better. When I was pre-soaking, I did not go and squeeze it multiple times to make sure all of the regions were completely saturated. And that is something that is definitely on me, and that I should have known better. But regardless, I think this is still a really awesome skein of yarn. I just took the yarn out of the spin dryer. And actually, it's been through my new Nina Soft spin dryer many times. I wanted to see if it would help me maybe with the rinsing for the color bleeding. And I'm not sure if it's like worth using it in between because you really don't want to get dye in the machine. But here you can see like the amount of rinse that we have after the final wash. And I'm thrilled with the spin dryer and how it dries the yarn. Part of me wishes that I had used royal blue for this project. It's a darker blue, so maybe the differences between the palest sections and the deepest sections would have been a little more obvious. I also, as I mentioned, probably should have wrapped this in plastic wrap because we did get some of our deeper colors onto our pale section. Nevertheless, we did achieve a gradient of color, and we have something that does appear like it was dip dyed. By diluting the tie-dye, we were able to get more saturated and less saturated colors on our yarn. With tie-dye, there's other ways to change the level of saturation, and that could be the volume of dye you add on a given section, or what kinds of resists you might be using. But this technique was honestly a lot of fun, and I hope to play around with it again in the future to give it a little more of a fair, complete chance. However, if you don't take chances and make mistakes, you won't learn anything. And so just going for it and trying new things is half the fun. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching this video. I love playing with multiple different types of dye and yarn, and so if you enjoyed this, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a new video. I release at least 2 new yarn dyeing videos every week and have frequent live streams and vlogs and unboxings, and we really have a lot of fun over here. I really hope to explore some Dharma fiber reactive dyes in the future. The Tulip one-step dyes are great, really easy to find, but I am excited to try to take some of my cotton dyeing up another notch. If you're a huge fan of ChemKnits and want to support us on another level and get access to behind-the-scenes sneak peeks and early access to new content, check out the ChemKnits Patreon. There's a lot of really awesome perks, and it truly is so much fun. You can find links in the video description and iCard. Thank you so much for watching.